My name is Professor Doug Holder. I'm with the Creative Writing Department. And we have young writers, series, authors here. One to be, a series, two others who have been published. The Young Poets series, it started out as a Young Poets series, but now it's the Young Writers series, includes everyone. Started out with, it was founded by myself and Dan Sklar in 2013, and we published a number of books by young and talented undergraduates. So I was just going to give the chance for these folks to read, ask them a few questions, and let us show us their talent and intelligence. At first I was going to ask Mr. Dutt here, who are some of the English professors who really stimulated your writing and things like that here in the English, because we have a great English department here.
So here I had the opportunity to be in the classes of some of the best English professors around
For
here.
instance?
For instance, Elizabeth Metalski.
Okay.
And Kelsey McNiff. They taught me critical writing.
Okay.
When I first got here in the fall of 2016 and in the spring of 2017.
Do you find that sort of helps your creative writing?
Yeah, I usually look at critical writing and the creative writing as two different forms of writing, because then on the other side it's more inclined to research, and on the other one, like on the creative writing side, it's more of your creative expression. So it helped in stimulating my thinking, but there it's still separate, so to some degree.
Dan, I know you've been with Dan Sklar, and we know that he's certainly an inspiration. It's an inspiration to me, and he co-founded this program. Mm-hmm. But what other English professors were very influential, you think, in your work and your writing here at the Endicott College?
I would say Elizabeth Winthrop is a great creative writing professor.
Right.
I've had her for 3 different classes now. She's also my academic advisor. So I've had a lot of access to her. I've been able to talk to her. Whereas Dan Sklar really likes to get people to just, put their words on the page and just put their stuff out there as much as possible. Professor Winthrop does a good job at emphasizing reviewing your work, like put yourself out there, but then kind of work to refine it through workshops, talking with her, talking with other students. She likes to facilitate that workshop environment to really get other people's points of view.
And she's a major novelist also.
Yes, yes, she is.
Accomplished woman.
Mm-hmm.
And how about you, Allison?
Yeah, as a freshman, I haven't gotten the opportunity to meet a lot of the professors yet, but I would say Professor Sklar was definitely a big inspiration in my writing that led me to this book, actually, because he was the one who introduced me to the whole program. So I'm really grateful.
Have you had any experience with any other of the teachers here, or in the English department?
Yeah, this semester I'm taking a writing for the media class with Professor Wemmer. So we're doing
journalism.
Right, it's more journalism. It's more like interviewing people, which has kind of gotten me like out of my comfort zone a little bit, which is good.
Yeah. Do you think you got out of your comfort zone in your writing?
Yeah, I think before this year, I was mainly just doing short stories. So when I got to Professor Sklar's class, I definitely opened up to poetry more. And a majority of this book is actually poetry. So he definitely encouraged me to get more into that.
So let's start with you, Mr. Dutt. I mean, you're from Sudan. It's a troubled place in the world, right?
Yeah,
absolutely. And so I'm sure you've seen things that we can't imagine.
Yeah.
But yet your poetry, and I had you in my class, the beautiful, calm, tranquil nature poetry. Tell me about that sort of.
It's my poetry is inspired by my memories, my childhood memories of my life back in Kakuma refugee camp in Kenya. It was like a refugee camp. It is actually a refugee camp, but I'm really a nature-loving person. So as a kid, I explored a lot. I stayed out in the woods playing in the riverbeds, dry rivers, and all that.
I remember you wrote about a dry riverbed where kids would play soccer until the next rain came.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
So those memories have stuck with me. Even here in the United States, I stay at the beach a lot. I go to the nature parks a lot. I'm a person who loves nature a lot. So that has really inspired my poetry. I like calm, I like tranquil places. And definitely being from Sudan, my parents had to move from Sudan and come to Kenya and to the refugee camp. So that is where I grew up. So they saw a lot of turmoil in Sudan, and I write about that, the experience.
Okay, I haven't seen that, but
Yeah.
I imagine in the book that's coming out, you're working with our director, Emily Pinault.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I have new.
Who's a
poems.
former Endicott student, by the way, yeah. And I think you both work with Emily, and
Yep.
Yeah.
yeah,
Yep.
she really helps. She really helps a lot. Okay, that's interesting. Now, Dan, I'm sorry. You worked as a reporter for the Lynn Item, right? For a while.
I did. That was my freshman internship.
Now, a lot of people, I remember you've heard of the Iowa Writers Workshop, right? It's one
I
of the
believe
premier
so.
writers' workshops in the country, is the premier. But I interviewed years ago Lan Samantha Chang, who now heads it up. And other authors I've read, they said newspapers is a good, writing for newspapers is a good preparation. Do you agree with that?
I would say writing for newspapers is definitely a worthwhile experience that can inspire you in many ways. It's very different from creative writing, but when you work for any kind of newspaper, you really have to be connected to your community. You really need to know about the people and the sort of institutions, I suppose, that operate in your community. You need to connect with people. You need to be able to develop interpersonal skills, definitely. When you interview people, I had to interview a lot of people over the phone and in person.
Did those people ever make it into your work? The people you interviewed, maybe there's some interesting folks you interviewed. Did you ever write about them?
I got to use a lot of different people for sources. I never wrote anything about one person in particular. One that was interesting was there's a in Lynn where I live, there's KIPP Academy, and they had a special STEM program that they're still doing. That was an article that I co-authored with another intern who.
Yeah, but I meant, did it ever reach your poetry, your experiences that you had?
Okay.
That's what I meant.
I would say.
Because we all take from our life, and certainly as a reporter, you've met a lot of interesting people, I imagine.
I don't know if it really impacted my poetry that
Okay.
much. It definitely got me to appreciate where I live a little more.
Okay. But you have to be a close observer as
Yes,
a reporter, and
yes.
you do have it as a poet as well. Yeah.
And a lot of stuff in my poetry does have to do with Lynn, where I live and where I grew up. So I would say it definitely gave me an appreciation for where I live.
And one, I hate to say, the old saying, Lynn, Lynn, the city of sin, but it is worthy of poetic inspiration, right?
Yes, I do actually include that in one of the poems.
Yeah, right. Well, they used to call Somerville Slummerville, but
Yeah.
it's not anymore. But yeah. And so, Allison, we had a poet who I had lecture here named Jojo Lazar, and I asked her to review your book, and she said that you have a wise and open mind, wise and open beginner's mind. That's according to Buddhism. That's the thing, a beginner's mind. A wide and open, wise beginner's mind. And you're 18, but she sensed that you feel older. Do you think that would be an accurate statement?
I definitely feel like that sometimes. Yeah, I have a passion for old-fashioned things. I love handwritten letters. I love.
Do you write them
just-
regularly?
Yeah, I love to receive them and I love to write them. And I definitely just have an appreciation for those things of the past that I feel like we don't really talk about a lot anymore with technology and the internet just becoming so much more popular now. But yeah, I definitely, at times, it's kind of ironic because I don't want to grow older, but at the same time, my mindset feels in an older place, if that
So
makes
you're
sense.
an old soul.
Yeah.
An old soul, yeah. What I was going to ask you is maybe we can get a few poems from your book that you can read. I'll start out with Mr. Dutt again. Mr. Dutt, the name of your book again may be, we're still not sure, you're working with Emily Pinault.
Yeah, sure. I'm gonna call it Genobi, but I could change it. Genobi is the name of South Sudan. It represents a lot of things to me.
Okay,
Yeah.
great. So lay on some poems.
Okay. So I'm going to start with the ocean. So I'm gonna go ahead and read it.
Okay.
The ocean is the title of the poem. Is it the rolling fog, looking like a giant gray ball? Is it the deep blue crashing waves? Is it the red shells washed ashore? I can't seem to leave. My feet are drawn to the huge rocks like a bewitching lover. My gaze is hooked on the milky shore. What a beauty the ocean is. I can't seem to leave. My mind is clear like a transparent glass because of the view before me. My heart swells in a mixture of joy and bewilderment. I can't seem to leave. That's the ocean.
Nice.
So I'm gonna go to the second one.
Yep.
If you allow. All right. So it's called Arid Climate.
About what is it
When
called?
I get the title.
Oh, arid climate,
Arid
okay.
Climate. So
That's Sudan, I imagine.
yeah, that's in my country, Sudan. Like a frothing ruler, the acacia stand imposingly in a linear canopy, a sight best drawn in from afar, best at 10 miles from the riverbank. The deep, long thorns sticking out from its bulging branches, cracks of decaying algae. Or is it algae? Sorry.
What's that?
The
Algae.
algae form on the branches. On the surface are huge cracks of drying clay from the seasonal rain. The arid and hot climate mushrooming into the geography. The landscape dotted with seasonal rivers and thorny vegetation.
Okay. Why don't you read us that one about the soccer? I
Yeah,
like that one
sure.
too. I mean, I like them all, but we'll go to the others.
So my third poem is called Seasonal River. I drew inspiration from my life, my childhood life back in Sudan and Kakuma. After it pours, after the ever-dry soil is turned into a mold of mud, the mighty waters of the seasonal river can be seen snaking down the dry banks of the Laga. Children playing in the silt of the riverbeds, pulling the soccer post out as they beam in excitement, running around the waters, frothy at the mouth, stealthily creeping in like a mugger. Soon the whole current is a buzzing mass of strong waters, carrying big branches and boulders underneath.
Wonderful, wonderful. It gives us, it's very insightful and great nature poem. Dan, I know you read. I read one of your poems just recently. Reread about you turning 18. What you're 19, 20 now, or
I am 20 now, but
you're
I
an old
am.
man, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. But you talked about, the sort of fight between, leaving your childhood and getting adult responsibilities, and it seemed like you were, sort of writing about your being at that time. A lot of the poems. Would you say that's an accurate?
Yeah, I would definitely say that
Yeah.
was definitely what the whole book was really about.
Have you changed since then, since writing this book?
I'd say a little bit. I'd say I've.
I mean, would you write this book now?
I'm gonna say no at first. Probably. I probably wouldn't say. Like, there's still bits and pieces of me from this that are still there, but I'd say I've definitely come far, even in the short span of 2 years.
So you don't look at this as sort of juvenilia. You look at it as still as a
No,
very important.
I'd say definitely very, very important to me still, but
Yeah.
just definitely.
But you do change. I mean, in rapid form. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you'll be even older than you think you are. Right. All right. Well, go ahead.
All right, 18. This is definitely the
It's
most
a big
pop.
transition age. Yeah.
Yeah. 18 is verdant, a darker, calmer green, like leaves in a deep forest upon aged trees. 18 is those leaves, snapping away from the branch, blowing away, sometimes taking rest before being blown away again. 18 is driftwood in the sea, unpredictably moving, reaching all the horizons, sometimes floating in calm waters but then launched by storm. 18 is the sand battered by tide, sometimes untouched, dry and pure, but then bombarded and baptized by waves. 18 is the age where you no longer hide, where you no longer sleep, where you cannot stay still, where you cannot not move, where you cannot not live, where you no longer cannot not be a kid. Where you must leave the tree, where you must face the sea, where you must eat the tide and be beat by your dreams, where your whole world seems to fall apart at the seams. 18 is the age of freedom with chains, a test of your strength to conquer yourself.
You got it, pal. Yeah. Yeah. If I can remember.
Yeah.
It's for a long time. But go ahead. Give me another.
Another one that was really important is the namesake of the book called To Move a Piano.
Moving a piano. Yeah.
Up and up and up and up, lifted by a rusty pulley, inched and inched with creaking screams, minuscule cries for help that barely touch your ears. Creak, creak, creak. A massive weight carried by this lift, a grand piano, smooth, dark brown, hard wood, filled with metallic wire and ivory keys and a cast iron harp, and all the parts inside, splattered on the cold, cruel concrete, shattered like a great glass sculpture that took years and years to create. But you try not to think of that when you have to move a piano, lifting the colossal contraption, that gargantuan weight that makes you feel like Atlas holding the sky above your head. But God damn it, you can't help it, hearing the creaking pulleys and the wind blowing past your face as you stare down at the ground below. It consumes your mind. The falling, the shattering, everything you've been working towards, slowly and gracefully, swiftly and terribly, damned to hell, and left in pieces on the cold, hard concrete. But you've already started, and now, for just a while, you're in eternity. An eternity of looming disaster, of infinite fear, and the small but living hope that it will make it up to the top and forever be at rest to play music in the sky.
So this is quite a metaphor for life. You were fearing. You know, we all have that feeling. I think that you know everything's just going to fall out from under us, and you know this terrible weight that you're talking about, and yeah. So it's just good how you use the piano to sort of explore that.
Yes.
One more.
I suppose another one that I'm a really big fan of.
He says it modestly, right?
Yeah, I try to focus on being a fan of my own stuff. It's called English Major.
All right. This is dedicated to all the fine professors in the English department and all?
Dedicated to English professors, English majors, anyone who I think can kind of relate to this. Oh, that's nice. I suppose it is. So, you want to be a teacher? I mean, I could be a teacher. What do you plan to do with that? I hope you're not looking for me to say teaching. You know, there's not a lot of jobs with that. There's certainly more than just teaching. Oh, do you like to read? I would sure as hell hope so. Oh, cool. Very thoughtful responses as per usual. Oh, do you want to be a writer? I'd appreciate the enthusiasm if I didn't know what follows. Can I read it? God damn it. You're going to be like the next Stephen King. Well, I hate Stephen King. I'd definitely read your stuff. I'm not sure you'd like it, but okay. What kind of stuff do you write? Wish I knew, pal.
Nice. That was your second poem, right? Was that your third?
That was you mean the second poem I read right now?
Yeah, why don't you read another one? One
Sure,
more. We'll get about
sure.
three apiece.
I suppose maybe I'll choose one that I don't read very much. This is a really short one
All
that people who sort of live around me will get. It's about, I'll just read it. It's called Cop Car. There's a
I'm sorry?
Cop Car.
Cop car.
There's a cop car on the corner, cool and classic blue. It sits upon its mighty curb and keeps an eye on you. Drivers slow and give a laugh after a quick stare, 'cause there's no one in the cop car, it's just funny that it's there.
So you're using meter here, right? Yeah, sort of
Yes,
like
a
rhyme.
little bit.
Do you usually work in, do any work in formal poetry or rather than free verse?
Yeah, I think when I first started out, I tried to do formal meter, but I think sometimes it made it kind of awkward. So I shifted to free verse for a lot of poetry.
Well, you know what
just
Robert
to-
Frost said about that, right? It's like free verse is like playing tennis without a net, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but I'm not. No, I'm a free verser myself. So, but yeah.
But sometimes I like to do the formal verse just because it gives it a nice sort of musical sound.
Yeah, yeah. Sometimes you just don't want to make it. You just don't want to you don't want to ruin the poem just for the sake of rhyming. That happens sometimes.
Right.
Yeah. Now we're here with you, and you're going to give us a 3 from your. Tell us what
Sure.
Kuoya means. Why did
Yeah.
you choose that word? It sounds exotic.
Yeah, a lot of people ask me about that. So I wanted to choose a word that was unique and uncommon. And I pronounce it Kurencia, but I'm not sure if that's exactly right. But basically it means like a place where you draw your strength from or where you feel your most authentic self. And to me, like writing is where I draw my strength from, so it kind of represents like this whole collection.
You feel
for me.
very authentic when you're just
Yeah.
sitting down and writing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, writers, you know you're a writer when you just don't feel right writing every day, or at least writing, you feel like this, uneasiness and things like that. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I said I feel if I'm, I'm not writing, but go ahead.
Okay, so the first poem I'm going to read is called Poetry Is, and it's a poem that I wrote in Professor Sklar's class.
Okay.
Poetry is a stranger that passes you with a smile. It is a rustic bookshop worn by dust and time. It is hearing the tune of a very specific song and knowing all the words. It is a sky full of stars obscured by cloudy nightfall. Poetry is walking in a straight line, then turning backwards. It is hesitating to be spontaneous and thinking, why not? It is laughing at an inopportune moment and saying the wrong thing at the wrong time. Poetry is sitting in a field by yourself, wondering how you got there as evening turns to dusk.
Nice.
The
Give us
second
another
poem, this one's called Nostalgia, and it's basically, I kind of just compiled a bunch of things that sometimes I think about, like in the summer, that I would like to get back to if it's like the winter or something, and I just...
So do you share Mr. Dutt's appreciation? I know you do. You share Mr. Dutt's appreciation of nature, right?
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
That was
and
that was a
tranquility.
big inspiration for this book. Okay. Take me back to starlit nights, to bonfire summers and firework lights. I want to drive by the beach and float on the waves. I want to feel the cool breeze and forget the worries I save. I'm craving soft serve ice cream from the food stand. I'm craving more freedom and time to relax on the sand. I want to collect pieces of sea glass and read all day. I want to swim in the ocean and catch its salty spray. I miss July rainstorms and writing for pleasure, making memories with family and taking pictures to treasure. I want to watch the sunset over the water and lose track of the hours. I want to meet new people and fall into a bed of flowers. Take me back to those moments of pure bliss where nothing matters except the comfort of summer's kiss. I want to love with passion and live with desire. I want to blaze so bright that my eyes burn like fire.
Nice, beautiful. One more for us.
Okay.
You all have different styles, but very good.
So this one's called Full Speed Ahead, and I was inspired to write this one because another theme of this book is just about like time and reminiscing about past memories, and this poem kind of confronts the concept of time and the idea that we have to keep pushing forward even if we're stuck on memories of the past.
Okay.
I wish time was rewindable. Other vehicles of motion have the power to turn back. Cars, birds, trains, roller coasters, even Ferris wheels circle around to the same place again. But time is a constant, neither fast nor slow. It simply keeps the world going so life can evolve and change. I'd like to think there's a loophole, some exit out of the system, a way to make the days pause, or at least view the past through a magic sphere, a snow globe bubble of recollection. But the reality I must face is that time is a vehicle of motion, and it will not wait for us. We are simply passengers along for this ride, waiting for our feet to scrape the ground. And if we never hit the ground running, we'll be stuck floating in circles for eternity.
Thank you. You know, editing is such an important revision. I'm sure you heard that. You know, like the famous authors like Thomas Wolfe, for instance, who wrote not Last Exit to Brooklyn. He wrote No One Dies in Brooklyn. I can't remember the. And he wrote, he wrote like Standing Up, and he had these huge manuscripts that he would have, and then he would give it to Maxwell Perkins, the very famous editor, and he would, whittle it down and edit it and revise and then send it back to him. And it was like this long process. Also with Ernest Hemingway, I think Perkins worked with Ernest Hemingway. Only the Dead Know Brooklyn, that was the one by Thomas Wolfe, one of his stories. So what I'm saying to you, you worked with Emily Pineau, who was a former student here, and in the Endicott Review. Tell me about your relationship with the editor and how that helps or hinders your work.
I think working with Emily has really been great. I'm still in the process. I haven't completed the book yet, but I've sent her many drafts, and she gets back to me really fast, and I really like her edits. There are some things that I usually don't see when I write the poetry.
You need you can't really be objective when you're reading your own work. I mean, like, don't you always have to try, like a friend read it out loud to you, and then you notice mistakes, or read it out loud?
Yeah.
I mean, I'm always finding mistakes, that I didn't notice. You have to have that objectivity, so it's good to have an editor.
Yeah, exactly. And just yesterday, I had her give me the last batch that I just sent her, and the feedback there was really good. There were mistakes that I couldn't really see, especially with the how I used. It's not really grammar, but how I structured the words in the.
One thing about poetry, there's a lot of license in there, so sometimes you could, if it fits, you can use something that might not be grammatically correct, poetic license, if it's for some purpose in the poem. How about you? How was the editing process and all that?
It was really helpful. There was a long series of kind of back and forth. We kind of took it small chunks of poems at a time, like sort of like 5 or so.
And you were quite opinionated about which is fine,
Yeah, there were I definitely appreciated the feedback.
Yeah.
There were a couple moments where I kind of didn't want to take the suggestions. An example of that is with English Major. The sort of gimmick, I suppose, of the poem is that it's disembodied dialogue, and she suggested sort of giving characteristics to the people who the narrator is talking to, but I didn't want to do that because I like it being disembodied, because it's supposed to sort of encapsulate this experience that happens over and over again with all
So did you
different kinds of
reach
people.
an agreement? I mean, about how to approach it?
Yeah, she let me kind of do it the way I wanted to, which I appreciated. But for the most part, with other ones, there were a couple ones where, like we were talking about, like the formal rhyme and verse. Sometimes there were moments where I was trying to do that, but it made it kind of awkward. And she suggested sort of just going back to sort of a free verse, which definitely helped it in the end.
Okay, so it was a good process. How about for you, Allie?
It was awesome getting to work with Emily. I think overall she helped really enhance the imagery in my writing. There were definitely a few stories and poems where I was kind of struggling with how to portray what I wanted to say to the reader, and she could kind of pick that out for me and gave me some suggestions. There's a poem in here actually called London Sentiments, and the first draft of it was completely different than the one in here, because she was really emphasizing like how important imagery is in painting a scene for the reader to understand. And I took that to heart, and I started like thinking about it in a different way, and so the version that's in here is like very different than the original that I showed her.
So she helped.
Yeah.
So you guys are, except for Mr. Dutt, who hopefully will join the Endicott Review. You guys, you have a position in there. I know you're the head guy.
Yes.
I'm just a member of the
Yeah. Okay. So
board,
tell me
yeah.
about that experience at the Endicott Review. I mean,
The Endicott Review is a great opportunity for students to sort of send in their work to be included.
do you know it won the Best American Poetry Award in 2000? It was in the Best American Poetry Anthology in 2006.
I actually did not know that.
Yes.
But that's,
yes.
but that's awesome.
Absolutely.
We had a big group this year, much bigger than we've had in the past. In my first year, it was a very small group of editors. But this year, with the new freshman class, with Allie and some of the other people who joined, we got a much bigger group, so we were able to sort of divide up the work and get through a lot of different chapbooks, like from Professor Sklar's class. He sends in a lot of the chapbooks, so we read a lot of people's stuff and sort of chose what we thought was the best to best represent the talent of Endicott College.
And one of the things, being an editor of a magazine myself for the last 20 years, you have to reject people.
Yeah.
How do you handle that?
Well, the Endicott Review, for the most part, includes as many people as possible. We don't really, it's not like usual literary magazines. We sort of, like Professor Sklar philosophy is just try to take at least one thing from everyone. It doesn't matter if it's, I don't want to say bad, of course, but it's like, it doesn't matter if it's not as good as some of the other people, like some.
Take the best of the litter, right?
Yeah, just, we just want as many people in the community represented as possible, and it's just a great opportunity to get many different voices, and sure, some of them might not be as good as some of the others, but the idea is that's okay. It's just you're getting as many people out there as possible.
And you have photographers and artists as well.
Yes, we have photography, artwork like paintings. We got a lot of those. I think those ones are usually the instances where a submission might get rejected, but that's not usually a choice of the editorial board. That's usually higher up than us, like College Hall, when they publish it. Sometimes if there's a picture that's not appropriate or something, they might not include it. But that's usually the only time that something might get rejected.
Right. They probably wouldn't have a Mapplethorpe
Yeah.
photograph in there or something like that, you know.
Yeah. And I also just remembered sometimes the only other reason that something might get rejected in terms of writing is because of page constraints.
Of what?
Page constraints.
Oh, yeah,
We got a lot of plays.
Well, you have a very small format, right?
Yeah, it's not a long book at all. And we got a lot of plays this year, and they take up a lot of pages, and we couldn't really include any of them just because we wanted to fit in as much stuff as possible.
But before we go, I wanted to mention that we're on this Tuesday is going to be the Young Poets reading series that we've done for a number of years. And we couldn't have done it without you, Dan. Thank you for getting all the people together, and Dan Sklar. And so these folks are going to be reading. There's an open mic. It's open to the public. I sent out stuff to newspapers and stuff, so maybe we can get people from the public reading, but I like to get our young poets exposure, and hopefully people will read. Well, I want to thank you all very much for coming here today.
Yeah, thank you for having
Thank you
us.
for having us.
Appreciate it.